Why do people like hate so much, right?
Yeah, why do they?
Well,
and what was Jay Shetty saying?
He was saying, people were calling him out in the comments like, this is a fake ass story, but I still liked it. But Jay Shetty was talking about how Socrates had this one, I don't know, student of his or whatever that came up to him. He's like, he's like, you won't believe what I just heard about your friend. And Socrates was like, before you tell me, stop right there.
Stop right there.
Is what you're telling me absolutely the truth? Can you confirm that's 100% the truth what you're about to tell me? He's like, no, well, I just heard about it, and I'm going to tell you about it. He's like, well, wait then. He calls it a 3-filter test.
Whoa.
So the first filter, we didn't pass, but there's 2 more filters.
Uh-huh.
And the next one was, okay, well, can you tell me if it's something good about my friend? Is this a... Damn, man, I'm about to injure yourself again.
Sorry, guys. Keep on going, though.
Out of commission.
No.
The second filter was that about like, is it something good about my friend? And he was like, not really. It's actually quite the opposite.
Oh.
He's like, well,
so
didn't pass that test. He was like, look, I don't want to hear it unless it passes this last filter. Is it useful?
Ooh.
Is it useful to me to know this? And he was like, not really.
Probably not.
And so it was like, then I don't want to hear it.
I don't want to hear
it didn't pass the 3-filter test. So we should always have this idea of like, what are we talking about and how often are we talking about other people? You know, because talking about other people in a negative light, in a negative way, just like, what is it, gossip? If it's just gossip, it doesn't add to your life.
It doesn't.
But for some reason, as humans, we like that little thing that's like, just, oh yeah, let's get on this negativity frequency and just discuss things that are appealing, but they have nothing, they add nothing to our life. And if anything, we're just so distracted and focused on another person's life that we just
takes
keep
away
talking
from
about.
yours.
Yeah, it just takes away.
I also see it as sort of a projection.
Yeah, right.
And I think that's bad.
Exactly. So when I heard that, I was like, that's so important, because it's like, if it's not true in the first place, it's like, and how do you know that what you're telling me isn't just a rumor? Like, why are we going to keep spreading this if it's not even true? You don't even know that it's true. You just heard it from someone else or whatever. You're not there. It's not 100% truth. And then on top of that, it's not only not true, but it's nothing good about that person. It's just talking shit.
It's just talking shit.
And then on top of that, it's not even useful to me to know that. You know, it's like, it's not even, it doesn't benefit me. Like, it's not a warning. It's not like a, yeah, exactly. Why even listening if it's not something that you need to know about, like maybe for like safety, or like, oh, someone's talking about you in a certain way, or someone's saying that, you know, it's like nothing that benefits you. It's nothing bad that's going to happen, you know? So it's like,
I wonder too how because I noticed that in daily life, right? You kind of just talk to someone, they just start talking about someone else doing this, and I'm just like, I want to know what's the appropriate way to
cut it off.
Cut that. What can I do? I know there's someone out there listening. I got this friend. They're always bringing up something about someone, and sometimes I just get tired of it. But you know, I'm a friend, and I want to be here for them. But how can I let them know in a nice way to not be talking so much motherfucking shit?
I think it's like that, by asking questions.
By asking those type of questions.
So like, you heard about this person, right? Like, do you know that that's true though? Like, start asking themselves like, hey,
and they're just like,
then
I don't know.
Then you'd be like, well, then how do you know? Like,
oh, well, I heard it from someone.
Yeah, but like, and if it's not true, like, do you trust that person 100%? You know, it's like, you go down a line of questioning that kind of gives them like the insight to like, oh, maybe I shouldn't. This isn't the right person to come to with shit.
Yeah, that's
you know,
true.
that's not even true. That's not benefiting. It's just like all this trash talking. Because if it is true and it is something that y'all want to sort out, and if it is something that's useful to know and like learn about or something, then okay, then y'all can work through it together. Like, it actually has some valid backing. But if it's just like just random gossip about some other person, it's like, what use is that to you? Why do I want to participate in that? That's very small-minded.
It's true, but like we were saying, right? They're a close friend or whatever.
Yeah.
And I guess questioning could be a way of derailing that.
Yeah.
And it's because that probably might be the only way, actually, questioning them. I think those kind of ways of line questioning that make them maybe like be like, why am I even saying this?
Yeah, right. Like, at this point, I'm not even talking about what I want to talk about. This guy just keeps asking me questions. Yeah, because if I came up to you and I started talking like all this stuff, and you asked me like where'd you hear that from? Like, you even know that that's true? I'd be like, I'd start thinking. I start thinking introspectively. I'd be like, well, why am I even talking about this?
Yeah.
Where did I even hear? You know, it's like,
Oh, she said, he said.
yeah.
Well, that's like hearsay too, though.
No, I
That's
don't
bad.
even. Yeah.
Because then it doesn't give anything credibility. It's just
Yeah.
like if me and Harvey get into an argument and there wasn't a third person there to witness us and hear what we were saying, then it's just, and then we both go to someone and say, he done this. Oh no, he said this. It's just hearsay. So it's just gonna be back and forth. No one has like some grounds to say anything.
Yeah.
Unless there's a third person there witnessing everything.
Yeah.
Then they can be like, oh, okay, no, he actually said this.
That's why mediators are so important when it comes to stuff like that. And I love how, I don't know, maybe there are clubs out there in like more popular cities like LA and like New York and stuff like that. They do stuff like that, but I feel like we need to bring back how popular debates were back then. Because that was like a center, like back then. I say back then, that's so general, but like during, what was it? During the Greek period, right? Roman civilization, right?
Romans.
Okay, so they would just be common to have like debates, right? Like just have like debates how people can come and join in, like have discussions and just debate each other, and like they're like you get two people on the opposites and they talk about it, and there'd always be mediators, and they word points to the person who like, oh, well, this makes sense, what he's saying does make sense and stuff like that. So it was just very common to debate, and now debate's like such a small part of like the education system. Like I've only probably done it like once or twice in my entire like just learning thing, but it's like I feel like it's so important because it teaches you critical thinking. It shows you like skip the BS and like how do we get to the point here, how do we find a solution without attacking each other, how do I stay calm during all this, and how do I make my point heard without screaming, and I think that's something that's like people are losing nowadays. So you feel like in order to be heard you need to be loud, aggressive, or angry. Even if you're an expert in things, you don't need to be. You need to just go in there with a curious mind. You need to ask the right questions. It's because at the end of the day you're trying to learn, the other person's trying to learn.
One thing too, I would say, if you really don't know about something, it's okay to be like, I don't know enough about this to even say anything.
Yeah. And
I think that's where the important side of being open-minded, because I think it's about being open-minded and probably putting some of your ego down and being like, I actually don't know much about this, but still continue to argue it would be some maybe like a pride type of thing.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lose this argument.
Or just make yourself look dumb.
Or even too, some people argue and they kind of can hear what you're saying, but they'll still want what they're saying.
Oh, yeah.
Still because, like, they don't want to be proven wrong, or they don't want to feel like they're wrong.
Yeah, but if we normalize this idea of, like, we have debates, right? Like, we like, how to talk, sit down and talk and discuss. We wouldn't have those issues, like, we wouldn't have, or as much, where people are just trying to
be... For sure. I think that's so important.
So loud. And plus, like, I think that's the best way to educate when it's, like, participation. That's why I love seeing videos where like people can come and sit down and talk to you about whatever it is. Yeah, like whatever it is you want to talk about. You obviously have an opposing view. All right, what are your points that you're gonna make?
Yeah, because I think it's different when someone can't back those points.
Yeah,
but it's also like you're right, when someone starts and you're in an argument and someone just starts to attack your person, you pretty much won already.
Yeah, oh for sure.
Because they have to resort to probably the lowest that had probably nothing to do with it. They just want to attack you now. Because they feel like they're losing the fight or whatever.
Yeah, that's called ad hominem, which means that you take the argument, like you try and defraud the person, paint them in a bad light to make their stance weaker. But in reality, it just shows that you're losing it, and it's a debate fallacy. So it means that, like, there's different types of fallacies when it comes to debate or like speech or like critical thinking, and it's like that's one of them. Ad hominem is like you are not even attacking the issue anymore. So what you're doing just went completely off the rails. Yeah. So like that's more like that's a negative point for you, a point for them, because it took you having to attack their character to try and weaken their argument.
Instead of nothing. The argument.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's probably that is.
And you see that so often nowadays, like with this example on Joe Rogan, just because it's the first thing that came to mind. But he was like he was shitting on a vegan doctor. He was like, look how frail he looks. He looks like a turtle. You're gonna listen to this guy.
Yeah.
And it's like. He was like interviewing this carnivore-based doctor, and shitting on a vegan doctor just because of the way he looked. So attacking him instead of the science, the research, the stuff that he's providing, attacked his physique.
That's true.
And instead he looked at he was just like applauding and listening to the guy that's jacked and ripped. He's like, this is all I need is just the physique part of it to prove my point. It's like, no, that's not right.
There's an internal thing too, like internal health. I think I remember seeing that
Yeah, and it's like that's invalid. Like you can't base certain things off of appearance or off a person. You know what I mean?
I don't know if this would be like talking shit, but I remember that video too. You know, they were emphasizing how Joe Rogan was saying that, and then they went to the flip side. Yeah, the doctor, you know, was jacked and stuff, but they looked into his credentials and his science and stuff like that.
Oh,
and he ended up being like probably not the best guy you'd want information from, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's just like, I don't know, that's kind of ironic.
Yeah, like he failed like certain drug tests.
Yeah.
He's like his cholesterol levels are like through the roof.
Yeah,
his
like,
blood tests are like all messed up.
It was bad.
Yeah, so it's like, but you're still willing to listen to him just because he looks jacked.
Yeah,
you know, just because he has a good physique, you're gonna listen to him. Whereas, you know, you're gonna ignore the guy that, you know, you're just roasting. He's an older man too. You know, it's not even like it's like
he is an older
it's not
man.
worrying. It's not like a sickening thing. He just looks like
age.
a turtle,
It really
according to
is
Joe
age.
Rogan.
It's age though. I guess on a certain
Yeah.
point you can't, because I think he's pretty much older than that.
Yeah, exactly. He's over here, you know, showing science and explaining things, but they just picked the worst images of him. And Joe was like, "Look at him. He looks like a fucking turtle." I'm
mean,
like, "Why are they doing him like that?"
Yeah, that's true.
Oh man, they just picked the worst example of like a vegan doctor and said,
Yeah.
"This is why veganism is wrong and bad." And it's like, dude, you're picking like the
That
worst.
has literally
example.
nothing to do.
It has
with
nothing to do with it.
They're
yeah.
just roasting the guy.
It's terrible.
Why
It's
they have
terrible.
to do him like
See,
that?
but like that's the thing. When a new idea emerges, when a new issue, whether it's morals or, you know, political or whatever it is, you know, you tend to just attack the person. You look into their background.
Yeah.
Oh well, look, DUI, or look, all this stuff, and it's like decredit him, you know, defraud him, you know, bring him down, and it's like, oh dang, yeah, this person fucking sucks. Not realizing that, you know, one, people are capable of change, or two, that what they're saying is valid. You know what I mean? It's like
that's very important.
It's like with the Sandy Hook shooter.
Oh man,
Sandy
controversy.
Hook shooter. Super controversy, right? Dude was vegan.
Yeah.
But imagine if they use that argument against people like us, saying, "Oh yeah, you vegans think you're all righteous. The Sandy Hook shooter was vegan. He still managed to kill like innocent little kids."
Yeah.
That's mind blowing. Adolf Hitler, vegetarian,
he was
right?
Vegetarian. Yeah.
Mind blowing too. But like,
That's
imagine if people just use like the worst example of certain movements to try and define it, and say, "Oh yeah, see,
that
this
doesn't make any sense to me though, because I'm pretty sure there's other people that do bad things and what. I mean, like, meat eater.
Yeah.
Murdered people.
Exactly. See, but it's like they're just gonna pick the worst of it, just and that's an example of just trying to. Yeah, that's an example of just trying to like bring a topic down, an argument, debate, whatever, by just using a person. You know, like take that other topic. Let's discuss what's
and just
right
belittling them.
Yeah, exactly.
And I guess like the main thing would be simply being able to have that open, candid conversation. And I like the points that you made before, like saying it without screaming, saying it without getting so emotional, saying it. I don't know what other types of things that you said.
Yeah, but it's like these are things that need to be taught, right? Yeah. These are things that take practice, critical thinking. Yeah, to be able to like look past your own head, or at least think with an open mind, and realize that not everything that I was taught growing up is 100% the truth.
That's true. Even when you have conversations too, you know, someone might say it's something that sounds a little odd to you. Like, wait, what'd you say?
Yeah.
You just kind of want to ask one more time.
Yeah.
And it's just, I think it's about being like, oh, I actually disagree with that. And I think that being okay with disagreeing with something someone says, and it's not like, he's like, bro, and starts taking offense. It's like, I'm not disagreeing with, like, it's not you as a person, it's what you said and what you think is right or whatever, the thing you said.
Especially when the person identifies with what it is they're talking about. Yeah. It gets super personal.
Yeah, because that's the difference. I think that's where, like, hey, man, that's something, like, you need to deal with internally.
No, yeah.
But I'm just saying, like, I don't think that's right, and I disagree, and I'll say this, and that, and maybe they blow up, or maybe we can have an actual candid conversation.
Because it's better when you say I disagree, and the other person asks, okay, well, tell me why.
Yeah, why?
Like, why do you disagree? And I think that's where it can, like, head into, like, an actual learning situation. Because it's just about... Oh man, it's so difficult to get two people on the same page when they're just arguing and they're just looking at they're not looking at the topic anymore. They're just looking at ways to attack each other or prove themselves right instead of going into it trying to learn. You know what I mean? Going into it trying to go with an open mind and hearing them out. And
I think a lot of ego, a lot of anger, a lot of pride comes into when it starts to get to that point in a conversation versus when it starts to change into an argument.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess
Exactly.
what do you think are first signs of just conversation to an argument?
Oh, for sure. When they start getting loud,
Loud,
when they start getting louder, when they start interrupting you, when you
interrupting.
literally see that there's no more listening being done, they're just waiting for their turn to talk. You can
Ooh,
kind of tell when
that's
someone's
a
just
good
like,
one.
all right, but then this, and that. You know what I mean? Like they're not even hearing you
Hearing
out.
what
They're
you're saying.
interrupting you. Yeah, it's just like they're just trying to have their point heard no matter
Oh
what.
man.
And at that point, if you are the bigger person in that situation and you're realizing these things, slow down the pace a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, and at that point, if that still doesn't work, you know, if you're taking breaths between your sentences, if you're talking to them and explaining things and you're slowing it down
Yeah.
and you're giving them a chance to speak and then you start talking and you keep getting interrupted, there's no point.
There's
At
no
that
point.
point, just let it go, walk away. That person's just not willing to listen. They just got heated.
Yeah.
They're done. You gotta
I
let them
think
cool
that's what it
off.
is.
Okay, go do your cooling off elsewhere. But like
Yeah.
at this point, the conversation's done. And
I think that's
you
important.
can just walk away knowing that maybe that you didn't win, but that you didn't lose because you didn't
Yeah.
lose your cool. You know,
Yeah.
you didn't lose
I
your
think
composure.
that's important.
Yeah.
But they say like, man, that can make you angry. Can make you like it's like a slave, right?
Oh,
they
yeah.
can control you.
That's your emotions.
Yeah, they control your emotions. They're like, oh, if I say this, it's gonna make them angry, which
Mhm.
therefore is gonna get that reaction that I want out of them.
Yeah, exactly.
I think some people go into conversations with the mindset of, I'm gonna get a reaction out of this guy instead of, oh, let's get to a point.
Oh, that's why recently, honestly, I've been obsessed with Socrates and just his
Yeah.
philosophy. Did you watch that video I sent you
Yeah,
about
I
him?
think I did.
It's so cool how he's and we
The
call
Stoic
it now
philosophers,
yeah,
right?
and we call it now the Socratic method, which is just debating or learning through just asking simple questions like, okay, but why, or explain, like
Asking
elaborate, you know, asking why or how, or why do you believe that, you know, and it's like at first they hated it back when that kind of like method was new.
For sure.
But it did start a wave because it was like a lazy way of debating, a lazy way of arguing.
Just like why?
But it's
do
like
this, why
you're
do
trying to go these questions down a trajectory where it either makes them realize that they're either right or wrong, and it's also an opportunity for you to learn. It's like you're not even stating the opposite side and trying to use like fancy words and all this stuff to try and like win, or trying to catch them in certain things. You're simply asking questions
Yeah.
and hopefully make them realize either A, like that they're wrong in the
Mhm.
situation, or that, oh, maybe they're right and I just realized it, but at the end of the day I'm just asking questions.
Yeah, and
You
I
know?
think that's good actually, because
Yeah.
that changes it from being like, oh, I'm trying to prove you wrong, or I'm trying to prove myself wrong, to I'm just simply asking a
Yeah.
question.
I'm just here to learn.
I'm
I
just
just
curious.
Love that. I love
That's
that.
actually really good.
And that's why I've been obsessed with it, because it's like obviously the man that popularized it. I don't know if it was there before that or if there was anyone else there, but Socrates made that popular like way back and taught it to his students, and you know, caused an uproar. Obviously they said that he was corrupting the youth
The
and
youth,
stuff
yeah, I remember that.
because they were questioning things such as like the gods, and like, why would you question things like that? Why would you like, why? And like also they took like their debates very seriously back then too.
Mhm.
They were talking about how, you know, you need to bring stuff up, like you need to be very well educated, well versed in these things, and then you had these people that were just asking questions and winning debates, and it was just like, this isn't right. This is the man that started doing all this. You know, he's turned our youth very lazy and just asking just these dumb questions and have them questioning stuff that shouldn't be questioned. And then yeah, they sentenced him to death because of that. But
That's insane.
yeah, so it is pretty crazy. But like, I love how like that started an uproar, and now very few people use it. And I feel like we need to get back to that, because all we really have is what comes between you and another person.
Yeah.
Right. Like a lot of, I'd say like 99% of your life is dictated by how you interact with others.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go into it with the mindset of asking questions and trying to learn, and just going with a curious mind and open mind, I feel like you're gonna be a lot better off than if you're the guy that's just trying to constantly be right all the time.
Oh, 100%.
You know, so I think that method needs to come back ASAP.
I feel like the guy that's trying to be right all the time is probably closed off to even learning from a certain type of person. And I think that's where they fail.
Yeah, that's true. Oh man, yeah, that's one thing too. When you close off a certain demographic, a certain thing, and you make yourself so anti whatever it is you disagree with, you've already developed a closed mind, because
Yeah.
you're saying that whatever comes out of the mouths of these types of people or that type of
Just
person,
not even gonna listen.
it's not even valid.
It
at
seems like a
certain point.
child, like just like la la, I can't hear anything.
Yeah,
It's just
exactly.
like,
Because they
why?
can say, like, you gotta realize, and this was hard for me to admit at one point, but it's like you gotta realize that there can be truth that's spoken out of, you know, that
Yeah.
person. Like a little bit of truth can come out of that, or even on the other flip side, learn from that person's mistakes. You know, learn from another person. You know, you don't have to admire everyone you take advice from or listen to, but you can definitely still learn things from others. And when you just shut that out,
actually,
I feel like that's closed-minded.
That's very good.
I feel like that's very closed-minded. But and you see, especially with the way we identify certain things, you know, like when people just identify themselves as something, whatever that is not that, you're gonna not listen to it at all.
Yeah,
It's like that's a dangerous mentality. I don't know if you've noticed this, but I'm just gonna throw it in there since we've been talking about veganism throughout this thing. But I follow the Carnivore MD, and I think that's kind of like funny for a vegan to do because everyone just in the vegan community hates him. But I'm willing to see like maybe there's some truth to what he's saying.
Yeah.
Maybe not in the carnivore aspect, but in the aspect that he talks about, you know, certain plant defense chemicals and like how to optimize gut health. I know.
You bring this up. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it's kind of uncomfortable, but like for me, it's like maybe there's like I agree with him that fruits and the way they are, we need to be consuming a lot more than we think. Like when it comes to fruits,
yeah.
You know, I'm still against like the meat side just for like the morality's sake,
for sure,
and even like the health sake and what science says. You know,
so even nutrients.
Yeah, but see stuff like that. But what he does say, you know, his carnivore-based diet does have like fruits and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But he completely cancels out, you know, seed oils and vegetables and stuff like that, just completely out of that, and processed food. But like, see, he does speak truth. Like, he knows processed foods are bad.
For sure.
He's saying that the seed oils that we're consuming at like an ungodly amount of seed oils on everything. Everything has to be fried. So
actually, that's right. Maybe because I'm actually going through a process right now. Well, as you see that, because I asked myself, because like, you think we're vegans, right? And we're like against that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I know you've told me stuff about that. I'm just like, but this guy, though. Like, why should I believe this guy after him saying this and that? But I think that's where the open-mindedness comes in.
Mm-hmm.
Willing to listen. Simply just listen.
Yeah.
Instead of, like, shut this guy out. He says this, cut this off.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think that you made me realize that right now.
Wow, that's awesome.
Because it's true.
I also find it very refreshing. The reason also I wanted to follow him is, like, if you can get people on complete opposite sides of the spectrum to agree on certain things, that must be the truth. So it's something everyone can agree on, whether you're a carnivore or like fucking
there
vegan
has some
diet.
truth in it.
There's like they agree on certain things. They agree on the processed foods. So I'm like, okay, cool, check. That's something that's important.
Mm-hmm.
They agree on the fruit aspect. They agree on sunlight. They agree on exercise, mobility.
Yeah.
You know, so there's a lot of things that they agree on,
true.
but they're never willing to see eye to eye with things like that.
With other things.
You know what I mean?
Because
So
it's so crazy. Because I hear doctors too. I think I forgot his name specifically.
Simon Hill. Oh, not Simon Hill.
That's his name, but not that doctor.
Oh.
He had another one.
Michael Greger.
Yeah, him.
Yeah, that's the turtle guy.
Yeah,
like
the
Joe
turtle
Rogan
guy.
said.
Yeah,
that's so much.
Him. He just talks about how, you know, the carnivore diet would be like a meme.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's a meme type of diet.
Yeah.
And I was just like, that's so crazy because I guess there are two people that are like MDs, right?
Yeah, they're both MDs. They both got their backgrounds.
You know, one says the complete opposite of this guy, and one says the complete opposite. And that's where it's just like, are we the ones to be like, okay, this guy's right, or this guy's right? Or can there be, because maybe it isn't so black and white, and maybe there is a gray to it.
Yeah, and that's what I like to see is like what overlaps between these two complete opposites. Like the more people I can follow that are just like completely varied, because if I'm only listening to one side of the person, like one side of the equation, how do I know whether that person's health recommendations are right? But like if you have two people that are complete opposites agree on something, then that must be right.
Yeah.
But they're not willing to see that. You know what I mean?
I like that.
Like they're not going to be willing to see it within each other because, you know, and obviously there are some times where like I do get kind of irritated because he's like the carnivore MD, he's like shitting on vegans. Like he's talking some bad stuff and like, why would you eat this? This is rabbit food. Or why would you eat this Beyond Burger filled with all this, you know, and just always just shitting on it. But like, you know, I look past it and I just scroll away or look to what's actually useful information and not hating. Because like when you make yourself something, you're so anti something else. I'm like, don't make yourself anti something else. Just say your point, but don't be shitting on people, you know?
I think that's getting angry. That's like letting your emotions. That's you screaming. If we were in a conversation, you would be screaming right now.
And that's why there's... I was following the Liver King too at one point. Oh, yeah, but him is just like... It was too... The negatives outweighed the positives of that guy. Yeah. There was a point where just he wasn't providing value in my eyes. Yeah, so I was like... And there was a point too where it's just like... I can't tell like these guys are just promoting the way they eat because like they simply because they
Believe
enjoy
in
it,
it.
and like let me find things to back up the way I'm already like living and eating and this stuff. So I'm enjoying it, just like nitpicking certain studies, and then just making that prove my point. And then if I convince enough people, I can make millions by them buying my supplements.
For
And that's something you'll
sure.
see too.
Oh,
Is like
that's
people
true.
people are trying to. I'm not trying to defraud them here, but it's like it's an interesting.
Defraud them, bro.
It's just like interesting to try and see, like they do have product lines that they're constantly in their reels, like even subconsciously they have like I take
Little
this,
thing in there.
bone broth, liver, and all this stuff, and it's like if you agree with the guy, eventually you're gonna be buying his products, But like,
That's
so I
true.
try to like stay away from people who like also always have products just lined up, ready to sell to you when you agree with what they're saying, vegan or carnivore. It's just like I'm always keeping an eye on that, and so I'm always more receptive to the people who aren't trying to sell me something.
I
That just
really
have
do.
like guidebooks, health,
I see
stuff like
that.
that, and just publications just ready for you to read and to research on your
Yeah,
own.
like free, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I think that shows a lot too about them.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see, two opposite ends of the spectrum at both levels of education.
Yeah.
Sit down and have a conversation,
Yeah.
and like someone be the mediator of that.
Yeah, there's something that accidentally gave him a lot of popularity too. The Carnivore MD.
Yeah.
They gave him a lot of popularity through the show The Doctors.
Like
You remember
I
that
think
show,
I
The
know.
Doctor? Like it's just.
it's like a I think I
blue,
know.
and it's like
yeah,
blue, they
yeah.
have these guys
Is it
talking
Doctor
stuff.
Oz?
I
I think it's
forgot.
Doctor Oz.
Maybe, but they had this
Something like
lady
that.
on the screen. They're like, everything you're saying, you're just saying the complete opposite. I don't know why you consider yourself, you have no science or you have no background in nutrition. You have no background on this. He's like, but I can still do research. I can search it up online and stuff like that. And I'm, with my background, I can understand these charts and graphs and all this stuff. And the lady was just like, no, like what you're saying goes against the scientific consensus on health and nutrition, and you're just a
Ooh.
fraud.
A fraud.
Yeah, and then there's some people who even though he was getting shit on, surprisingly he still gained like a massive following like right after that, because people were like, wait, maybe he has a point, let me go check him out, and they start reading his stuff, and they like it.
Yeah,
but,
that's how it starts.
and that's how a movement starts. It's oddly enough, but either way it gives us, and this is why I love it too, because it's like it gives us better arguments, it gives us better more funding for studies and research and stuff like that, because if you had no one opposing your belief or your view, you're not going to want to try and improve it or make it better or sound more convincing, so it's good that there's like two opposite ends of the spectrum to see like, okay, who's really speaking the truth and who's just trying to sell you a product.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
that's true. Frauds.
So yeah, exactly, just frauds. But yeah, that's one example of just being open-minded, you know what I mean?
I think that's huge.
Because there's things that, trust me, like there's things that you're gonna agree with your fellow human if you really try to find.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be, oh, you identify as this, or you're in this group or movement or whatever. Nothing, like just not
No
even associated.
talking. I like the one thing to tie it in a bow, I guess we could say.
Tie it in a bow, please.
Is the fact that be willing to listen and understand the opposite side without feeling the need to throw hate, and I think that's a huge difference between someone going to a page, looking at his stuff, commenting, hey, this is shit, this is bullshit.
You don't know what you're talking about.
Versus the guy that's okay, let me see what he has to say. Okay, I don't know about this. Yeah, okay. You're listening at least.
At least, yeah, that's the minimum.
And that's what I think.
I like that bow that you just tied.
Yeah,
that
like
was
that.
a good one. And I also to make it around full circle.
Yeah,
the reason
please.
I don't know if you got this on recording or not, but we got to talking about this from our street interview that we did, where we got someone that was a complete opposite of everything we were talking about. And I hope that shows you guys that
actually,
we're still gonna provide.
yes.
Yeah, right. That was the biggest one.
Yes.
That we're still gonna provide both sides of the equation here. Atheist, Christian, Democrat, Republican,
Socialist,
whatever,
independent,
yeah,
whatever
it
you
is.
are, whatever you are.
And it's kind of
We're
refreshing
gonna
to
listen
see
to you.
that there's exactly, and that there's multiple people out here that we can talk to, interview, and that guy, he already got his few hate comments right there from just those few views that it got, which it did got a pretty good amount of views.
It did.
But he even with that, he already got his hate, and he already got people supporting him. So it's there's certain it's just so weird to see like just that divide that there is right there, like without even knowing the person, already calling him names, already calling him all this, you know, and
Based on like a sentence.
yeah, based on a sentence. See, that's mind blowing. You can literally get just like instantly put in a certain category in someone's mind off of just something in your past, something that you said, something you've done, and that's it. That's where you're gonna stay at. Suddenly you're stupid, a dick, an asshole, you know, whatever it is, just from that.
Yep.
But you know, we're gonna bring it here, and it was good that we got an opposing view, because everything was just so nice, so good, so amazing. And we have this guy that's just shitting on it completely.
Yeah.
And whether you agree or disagree, it
And
stirred
why-
up the conversation.
Why?
either way.
Yeah. Why does the controversy do good?
Oh, that's how we got
That's
talking
what
about
it
it too.
was,
Yeah.
yeah.
We were asking like, why is the controversy do good? Why do people like to hear the bad, the negative? You know, that they just want to resonate with that.
Yeah.
And well, here we are talking about it.
I think that exactly, and I think that piques their interest though,
Mhm.
and maybe it's like an eye-catching thing. Oh no way, he said this.
Yeah.
Let me say something.
Yeah.
Or did you hear what this guy said? Look.
Oh,
Versus
man.
the guy's like, oh, you know, that's nice.
Yeah.
Scroll.
Yeah.
You know, versus like, oh mother, look what he did. Look what he said.
Yeah.
Everyone look. Everyone.
And I think it comes with identifying yourself so strongly with that thing that he's not even talking about you as a person, doesn't know your name, doesn't know your face, doesn't know where you live,
Oh.
but because you identify with what he's talking about, you know, America, right?
Yeah.
No, me. He's
That's
talking
what
about
he's
me.
talking
I'm getting
about me.
offended.
Oh, see, that's
You
where
know?
the projection comes in, guys.
Yeah, and then that's where it gets bad.
Easily taking offense, taking it personal.
Your emotions are or what were you saying about slave?
Oh, you become a slave to the angry.
Yeah, you become a slave to your own emotions. And
Because-
your emotions are being just manipulated by someone
Yeah,
else.
because if someone knows that they can make you upset, they'll just toy with you.
Yep,
But I think that's pretty much it, guys.
that is it. Looks like we're all done here, guys. Make sure to
Yeah, tell them.
comment, like, subscribe if you're watching on YouTube, and then
Yes.
rate us and do all that good stuff. Share it with a friend
Mhm.
if you're listening and even watching.
Yep.
So yeah.
So have a great day.